Hi there, and welcome to our podcast. We're so glad you're here. In today's episode, you'll hear a personal and emotional story called Losing and Finding Myself During the Pandemic. It's a great opportunity to practice your English listening skills while connecting with a meaningful and inspiring topic. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. I never thought a global pandemic would be the catalyst that forced me to confront the parts of myself I had been avoiding for years, but when the world stopped, so did all the noise that usually distracted me, and in that sudden silence, I came face to face with truths I didn't know I had been hiding from, because before everything shut down, my life was a carefully constructed routine, one that gave me the illusion of control. Wake up early, commute to work, answer emails, attend meetings. Have lunch with coworkers, come home late, maybe watch a show or scroll through social media before falling asleep only to repeat the same thing the next day, and I told myself I was happy, or at least fine, because there was always something to do, always somewhere to be, someone to talk to, something to plan. But when the pandemic arrived, and everything closed, the office, the cafes, the gyms, the events, even the sidewalk seemed quieter. I found myself alone in my small apartment with too much time and no clear direction, and at first, like many people, I tried to keep busy. I made schedules, signed up for online classes, started baking bread like everyone else, tried to learn guitar, reorganized my closet, cleaned under the couch, and made lists of books I had never read, but beneath the surface of all that activity, there was a growing discomfort, an uneasiness that I couldn't quite explain, like a voice inside me that had finally gotten loud enough to be heard, and the more I slowed down, the more I realized how tired I was, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, in ways I had never named. I had been living on autopilot, measuring success by productivity, defining self-worth by output, and confusing social validation for connection, and without the external structures of my usual life, I began to feel disoriented, as if I had lost the map to who I was. And the first few weeks were the hardest, filled with anxiety, uncertainty, and a deep sense of loss. Not just for the world we knew, but for the version of myself I had clung to without question, and as I sat in my living room day after day, the silence became a mirror, showing me all the parts of myself I had ignored, insecurities, old wounds, forgotten dreams, suppressed fears, and I couldn't run from them anymore, because there was nowhere to go, and no one around to distract me from myself, and in that solitude, I began a process I didn't know I needed, one of reflection, introspection, and eventually, healing. I started journaling not out of discipline but necessity, pouring my thoughts onto paper, sometimes angry, sometimes scared, sometimes confused, but always honest, and as I wrote, patterns emerged, old beliefs that no longer served me, narratives I had been repeating about what I should be or do, identities I had outgrown but still held onto because they felt familiar, and slowly, I began to question them, not with judgment, but with curiosity, asking myself what I truly wanted, who I really was without the roles and expectations I had been performing, and at the same time, I allowed myself to feel, fully and deeply, the grief of everything we had lost, not just lives and routines, but also certainty, connection, and the simple comfort of touch or shared laughter in a crowded room. I cried, sometimes for no clear reason, sometimes for all of them. And I learned that sadness is not weakness but evidence of care, that being vulnerable is not a flaw but a doorway to growth. And as the months passed, I started to rebuild, not my old life, but a new relationship with myself, one rooted in authenticity, presence, and compassion. I began meditating, not to escape my thoughts but to sit with them, to witness them without judgment, and in that stillness, I discovered an inner calm I had never accessed before. I reconnected with nature, walking slowly through empty parks, noticing the details I used to overlook, the way sunlight filters through leaves, the sound of birds in the early morning, the rhythm of my own breath, and I started creating again, painting for the first time in years, not to be good at it but simply to express, to play, to explore, and I reached out to people I hadn't spoken to in years, rekindling friendships that had faded, and I found that many of us were going through the same awakening, the same realization that we had been living disconnected from our deepest selves, and we began to talk, really talk, about things that mattered. Fear, hope, identity, purpose, and through those conversations, I felt less alone, and more alive, and perhaps the most important change was learning to be with myself in silence without needing to escape, to sit in stillness and know that I was enough, even without achievements, even without plans, even without someone else in the room. I stopped measuring my days by what I produced and started valuing how I felt, what I noticed, who I connected with, and as the world slowly began to open up again, I emerged different, not in the dramatic sense of having completely transformed, but in quieter, deeper ways. I spoke more gently to myself, made choices more aligned with my values, said no when I needed to, and yes when I meant it, and I realized that the version of me that was so busy before was doing the best it could, but it wasn't truly living, it was surviving, performing, rushing through moments instead of inhabiting them. And now, I want something different, something real, and though I wouldn't wish the pain of the pandemic on anyone, I also can't deny that it gave me something precious, the space to come home to myself, to remember who I am beneath all the noise, and to choose a life that feels true. And every now and then, when the world feels loud again, I return to that quiet place inside, that part of me I met in the stillness, and I listen, because I've learned that losing yourself isn't always a tragedy. Sometimes, it's an invitation, and finding yourself again is not about going back to who you were, but becoming who you were always meant to be. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We hope this story gave you something to think about, and helped you practice your English listening skills too. Remember, every challenge brings a chance to grow. Stay curious, keep learning, and take care of yourself. Until next time, bye for now.